All right, as best I can think now, this is the wrap up. We made it, which is great because my goal for the summer was to get all these videos done. Like I've said before, I think this is the fourth summer that I've had it on my list of things to do. Finally got it done. So I'm pretty hyped, you know? Got my tie-dye dress on, feeling like I'm ready to party that we're done. I actually have a piece of cheesecake waiting for me in the fridge as a reward for finishing this. I have children that live in a different town, and that town has a cheesecake factory, so I went there last week and bought the white chocolate raspberry cheesecake, which I'm normally not a white chocolate fan, but man, that's so good. And I came home, froze it. Tonight I'm eating it as soon as we're done here. So let's move on. Wrap up. We started out by saying, I'm not trying to tell you how to homeschool. I'm not trying to tell you how to parent. I am only telling you the process that I went through to make decisions for our home education journey that I have had peace with. That's the whole thing about this, is so that you won't second guess yourself, so you won't freak out every time something doesn't go quite the way you planned it. You can have peace because you have been through the process. You are firmly grounded on the values that you have written down and thought through and that you want to build on. So that's the point to all this, is so you're not constantly having that spinning back here going, I'm ruining my children. So we talked about making when your children leave home, who are the people you want them ideally to be. That page, there's mine. And how those are essentially expressing your values and the kind of person you want them to be. But we also said that most of this isn't really teachable. It's something that has to be modeled for them, which is the really big downer in all this, is I have to become this as much as possible. We're all flawed. That's our first thing. Make that list and know that it's a long-term list. And thankfully we have a lifetime. And our children are growing. We're growing. I talked to a friend this week and we were saying something, and one of the best quotes I ever heard was a pastor who said, I wish I could put my 50-year-old head on my son's 20-year-old body. I'm like, oh, there's so many times I want that. But we're all growing. We're at different places in that growth. We're going to do what we can for our children. So our first thing was to make that list. We talked about how you want to do your spiritual values, how to pass those on. Because like I've said all the way through this is Christian content. So I'm assuming that you will have a basis in the Bible, that is your basis for truth. How do you want to communicate that to your children? That was our next thing. The next part was explaining the master list pages, saying that truth is the basis for everything in our present life and in our future life. So we have to always be searching for that, evaluating if something is true or not, and learning how to communicate it. So we looked through if you have any special scriptures that might inspire you for either you as the parent or you as the home educator. We chose the different parts of this, the disciplines or subjects. We chose, let me look at it, Vanna White here pointing. Basic components. Purpose was a big one to me. Best teacher went along with the idea of a mentor, which came from the Thomas Jefferson education. We also had the classics, which same source for that, but also the Charlotte Mason thing, talking about living books, those kind of things. These are pretty vital. Who are the ones who will best teach your children? Or what are the things that will engage them with great minds? Then we talked about, oh, yeah, the methodology. That's the how are you going to actually make this happen? When you choose this, and it could be a set curriculum that you buy, it could be things that you piece together. You want to make sure that these fit with your purpose and the values that you started with. Then we talked about, this was from Classical Conversations, they do a lot of memory work. What do you want to memorize that goes along with this subject? That'll be really just stuck forever. What was next? We talked about how many years you have to accomplish all this, so how much you major on if you only have a little time to squeeze this into. Individual planning page for the child that goes along, has the subjects here that matched here, and then what particular things you were going to do that year. So those are the lists that you've hopefully made at this point. Urged you apply to Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Find your legal oversight group for your state, your area. HSLDA will have information about that if you don't know it right off. Finding people to observe so that you have that short term, or not short term, but someone who's a little bit ahead of you and someone who is much more long term, so that they probably have more of the ideas of your values page. They're going to have really a lot better in that, where the short term, I keep saying short term, I don't mean that. The person who's a little bit ahead of you will be probably better in a lot of this area, right in here. So finding those people to have partially as mentors, people to ask questions to, but someone that you can watch and pattern after. In some ways you might say, I'm going to pattern the opposite of those people, or I'm going to pattern exactly like this one, or pick and choose. Then we talked about, is there anyone you want to go over this with and get feedback? Maybe your husband, maybe your mom. Sorry. A mentor, someone else that is important to you that will help you think through things, or just if you're one of those introspective overthinkers like me, I just like to come back to it and look over it and tweak it. That's fun. I love tweaking. Talked about possibly doing a retreat to go through this, and then level 10, get prayer support. Be open and real, share your needs, and have people who are committed to pray for you a year at a time. Talked about a few seminars. I'll probably go back because I've been having kind of fun with this. It's like, oh, I get to tell you what I like. So I'll go back and give recommendations for specific things, but overall, that's it. So I'd like to just say, not just to revisit and tweak things as you go. I've tweaked my initial list multiple times, but overall it's stayed the same. But I might add, or I don't know that I've subtracted much. Just tweaked it. That really is the best word. I don't know why I tried to over-explain that. Persevere and trust God's leading and the work that you did in listening to what God had to say when you were making these out. That's how you have that peace. You can go back and go, I really listened to God. I really sought His will in this. I thought through it. It stands firm. So you can trust in that work. The work you did, the work that God is doing in you. And then go forward in that and trust in that and do your best every year. There are going to be times when you'll come back and go, wow, I thought that was going to work really well and it didn't. So you might redo some methodology, or as you get more into things, you might go, oh, I didn't even know these classics existed, or these mentor slash best teacher. Didn't know about them. So the more you get into it and do things, you'll tweak this as more information comes. And remember not to beat yourself up. You do the best you can with what you have. You know, if I had known 25 years ago everything I know now, I would have done things differently, but I didn't. I did the best that day, that year, with what I knew. And with the sleep I was getting a lot of times, you know. So I'm proud of you for working through this, and I appreciate that you stuck with it this far. We'll see. I don't know that I would have stuck through all these if someone else had done it, honestly. I'd be like, oh, this woman talks a lot, but her flowers are great. So, thank you, and I'm gonna stop right now, and before I eat my cheesecake, I'm gonna pray for each person who watches it and makes it through. May God bless you in your efforts and bless your homeschool, your family. Thanks for trusting me to listen. Bye.